Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Why, yes, thank you. I did get a new haircut, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Halloween, and specifically the fourth entry in this very messy and convoluted series, which, believe me, we're going to get into that. I find Halloween 4 fascinating. Not the movie itself, we'll get into that, but the legacy that this movie has kind of garnered from fans of this franchise, I find to be kind of fascinating. As far as the original film goes, which I have the Blu-ray right here, John Carpenter's Halloween. It is maybe my favorite horror movie of all time. I jump around in terms of what my favorite of anything is. So some days Halloween is my favorite horror movie. Other days Evil Dead 2 is my favorite. That framed movie poster you see behind me, Aliens, that's another one of my favorite. A horror movie that's also an action movie and a sci-fi movie. That's kind of why I love it. It's like all three of my favorite genres in one movie. That's besides the point. The first Halloween movie is a very, very simple film. A crazy kid kills his sister, goes to a mental facility, breaks out, goes back to his hometown, murders babysitters. That's the movie. What makes the movie incredible and iconic is, of course, John Carpenter's direction. He elevates this very simple material to genuinely frightening and amazing scenes of perfectly crafted suspense and tension. This is something that the Halloween sequels, in my opinion, have failed to recreate pretty much every single time. This is the only Halloween movie that I've seen that still is frightening and nerve-wracking, that is still effective in terms of its scenes of suspense, and it's perfect. It is a perfect slasher movie that utilizes its slow-burning scenes to create genuinely terrifying moments that are iconic. And it is basically the slasher film that kickstarted the slasher genre. Of course, Halloween was not the first slasher movie. You know, movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas, and of course, all the 70s Giallo films. You look at movies like Deep Red by Argento, another one of my all-time favorites. These are all movies that had the slasher formula before Halloween, but Halloween was the one that really took all of those elements and created like the perfect blueprint, and then that's how the slasher genre was born. And you know, as much as I love the first movie, and I don't hate the sequels, or at least I don't hate all of the sequels from the Halloween franchise, as a whole, if we're looking at the entire Halloween franchise and not just the first movie, it's a mess. It's undeniably a mess. In fact, I would say, as far as horror franchises go, I would put Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise over the Halloween franchise, at least in terms of consistency, at the very least. And those movies have problem being consistent themselves. But Halloween is so fucking convoluted that this is a series that has 4 separate timelines. 3 of the timelines ignore several other previous entries in the series. So it's been retconned 3 times, and it sounds like it's about to get retconned again after the whole debacle of the newest Halloween trilogy, the David Gordon Green trilogy. And so, as a whole, the Halloween franchise is a mess, and that's never going to change. I'm curious to see where the franchise is going to go from here. If it has any other ideas, I really don't know. But that takes us to Halloween 4. Now, after Halloween 3, which, by the way, I have not seen Halloween 3 yet. I know. It's kind of become a cult classic. That movie's been very positively reanalyzed over the years. But taking that movie out, because it's not a Michael Myers movie, after the failure of that movie, Mustafa Akkad, who was the producer on the original Halloween, bought the rights from John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. And he's like, you know what? We're going to do back to basics. We're going to bring back Michael Myers, and we're going to give the people what they want. And that's how we get Halloween 4. Now, Halloween 4 on its own is a perfectly watchable late 80s slasher that, in my opinion, is kind of on the bland side. I do have some nostalgia for this movie, though. When I was a preteen, or maybe in my early teens, I remember that AMC was doing a Halloween movie marathon.
Michael Myers is coming to AMC Fear Fest. So this year, everyone's going to be the same thing for Halloween. Dead.
We are talking about evil on two legs.
What do we do?
Try to live.
You know what today is?
It's 4 nights of Halloween.
And that's where I first watched the Halloween 4 and 5, I believe. I don't believe I watched Halloween H2O then. I watched that movie a little bit later. And so I remember watching Halloween 4 and liking it. And I remember as I was watching the movie, I was like, this is fun, but you know what? This is obviously edited for TV, right? All the kills were edited down. The hot blonde girl wearing that cop t-shirt, that nudity scene, that got edited out. Hey, I was a teenage boy. That type of thing was very important to me. So I was like, you know what? I got to track this movie down and watch it unedited. Bought the movie on DVD at my local FYE. Y'all remember FYE? God, I miss that store. Went home, watched the movie, and I was like, this is hardly different at all from the TV version. It feels almost exactly the same. I think the only scene that got legitimately edited down was the most graphic kill in the movie, which is the scene where Michael rips that truck driver's neck open. Pretty graphic. But that was it. I was like, wow, this movie was and back when I was a young, dumb teenager, I wanted to watch slasher movies for the kills, and Halloween 4 definitely did not deliver in that regard. But before I get any further, let's just do a brief synopsis of Halloween 4. It's going to be very simple. After years of being in a coma since the hospital explosion in Halloween 2, Michael wakes back up, decides to go back to Haddonfield, and now he is targeting Laurie Strode's daughter. Laurie Strode was killed in a car accident, I guess, years prior to the events of Halloween 4. And Jamie Strode, the daughter, who is now living with a foster family, I believe she's adopted and has a adopted sister who she gets along with. She's the new target of Michael. And then, of course, we get Dr. Loomis, played by the great Donald Pleasance. He comes back, and his character is basically a more campy version of his character from the first two movies, which is, we got to stop Michael, he's evil, he must be stopped, and nobody listening to him until it's too late. So that's the plot of the movie. Not exactly the most original plot, but the whole idea behind this movie, according to the producer, was to bring the movie back to basics. And so the legacy with Halloween 4 I find interesting, because this is the movie, the two movies I see get mentioned the most in terms of what are people's favorite Halloween sequels is this one and Halloween 2, which I have the Shout Factory Blu-ray of Halloween 2. I like Halloween 2 a lot more than Halloween 4. What Halloween 2 has going for it, like Halloween 2 is nowhere near as good as the first Halloween in my opinion, but what that movie has going for it is it does a good job of matching the same tone of the first one, more or less. We get some more graphic kills, and we get a great creepy hospital setting, which I think is awesome. But Halloween 2 is not a great sequel by any means. It's a very standard kind of, all right, we're continuing the same night as the first movie. And, John Carpenter said writing that script was a miserable experience for him. And he basically had to write in some half-ass motivation for why is Michael targeting Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie? And he's like, oh, he's the brother of Laurie. We'll just throw that in there. There's a half-assed idea that would have drastic consequences on all the other Michael Myers sequels in that, well, now we have to give Michael a motivation. And that's where a lot of the sequels in this franchise are ruined for me, is because the idea of Michael having a motivation completely goes against what makes the first Halloween movie so effective. In that he is the living embodiment of pure evil. He doesn't have a motivation. He is the boogeyman. He just kills indiscriminately. The reason he targets Laurie in the first movie is just because she's there. She exists. She's an easy target for him, or at least that's how he perceives it. The second you give him a motivation, he becomes less scary and just not nearly as effective. And that goes for Halloween 4. So he's going after Jamie, Danielle Harris's character, just because it's the daughter of Laurie, and he's like, oh, I have to kill everybody in my bloodline for some reason. And then the movies get even more off the rails in Halloween 5, which I haven't seen in forever. I barely remember that fucking movie. But I guess in Halloween 5, they kind of get more supernatural, and, it gets weirder from there. And then Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, I haven't even seen. I think I am going to watch it out of morbid curiosity, but apparently that takes that concept and gets even stupider with it. So yeah, Halloween 4, it kind of pushes that thing where it's like Michael needs to have a motivation. I think that's dumb. It goes against his character. I think that's one of the reasons why the Friday the 13th franchise is more effective than the Halloween franchise as a whole, in that Jason doesn't really have a motivation other than, oh, camp counselors bullied me, so I just killed camp counselors. And it's like, you know what, that's fine. Whatever. We can go with that. He's not targeting anyone specifically. It's just whoever gets in his way gets murdered. But Michael having a motivation to kill everybody in his bloodline, it was a dumb idea in Halloween 2, and it's a dumb idea in all the other sequels that try to carry that same storyline. You know, outside of that, Danielle Harris, who plays Jamie Lloyd, is very good in the movie. She gives a legitimately good performance as her character. The problem is that her character is just a girl who screams and yells and cries a lot, and you know, that's kind of the whole point of her character. We're supposed to feel sympathetic for her, and we do because she's a little vulnerable girl. But there's not much substance there. There's not a lot you can do with that. But it, you know, I guess you have to try to do something. And that's the thing that's so interesting to me, is that this movie is considered to be people love Halloween 4. Like, it's not a movie that was critically well received. I mean, none of the Halloween movies outside of the first one really was that well received. But I guess I don't understand why fans love this movie so much, because it is, to me, it almost feels like a made-for-TV Halloween special. Even, I mean, look at Michael's mask. Now we got to talk about the appearance of Michael in this movie, which drastically takes down the fear factor of this film. He looks so fucking stupid in that, like, what that knockoff Halloween. There are costumes. I just went to Spirit last week. They have better Michael Myers masks now than they do in this movie. And this is a professionally made film. Why is the mask so stupid looking in this movie? Michael does not look scary because of how dumb that mask is. It takes a lot out of the film. Okay, so the question is, what could have made this movie better or more entertaining? Here's my dream version of Halloween 4. Leave the script the same, because, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do to try to make a sequel to Halloween very compelling. The only thing you can do is make Michael come off intimidating and give us some gnarly kills. So my dream version of Halloween 4 is you get Todd McLaughlin, who directed the best Friday the 13th movie, Jason Lives. You get him to direct the film because he actually has a vision, unlike Dwight H. Little, who directed this movie. And this movie looks very bland, very generic, very uninspired, creatively speaking. There's only one cool shot in this movie where the camera zooms in on Michael when he's at the diner, when Dr. Loomis catches up with him. He's got the bandages around his head. That's the only cool shot in this movie. Everything else is shot very flat, very generic, just bland. So you get Todd McLaughlin, who did Jason Lives, because that's the best looking Friday movie. It has the best atmosphere. You get him to bring some of that atmosphere and great visual sensibility to Halloween 4. And then you get Tom Savini, makeup artist extraordinaire, maybe the greatest who's ever done it in the horror genre, who did all the best kills in the Friday movies and Friday Part 4. And you get him to help create the kills in this movie, because the only thing that would have made this movie a fun 80s slasher is you let Michael go crazy and off the rails with the kills, because that's all this movie has to offer. It doesn't have anything else. The story is stupid. Jamie gonna turn into Michael Myers, or she's gonna follow the same path as he does, is not a really great idea, and it's completely abandoned in the next movie anyway. So what do you do when a slasher movie doesn't really have that good of a plot? You give us good kills. And so that's the version of Halloween 4 that should have been made, in my opinion. You get the guy who did Jason Lives, get the makeup artist for Friday Part 4, you introduce those elements into this Michael Myers movie, and I think we would have had a great, schlocky, campy, dumb, but super fun Halloween movie. Instead, we get this. And I guess my question is, why is this movie so beloved amongst Halloween fans? Is it beloved because the film is technically better than a lot of the other really bad Halloween movies, like Halloween 5, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween Resurrection with freaking Busta Rhymes, the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, which I fucking despise. I didn't even finish his version of Halloween 2. I thought it was so terrible. I watched the first one all the way through. I thought that one was equally stupid. This is just my opinion. I'm not going to look down on anyone that likes this movie. I'm curious as to what is it about Halloween 4? If anyone who's watching this is a fan of this movie, let me know in the comments why you like Halloween 4. Is Halloween 4 your favorite Halloween sequel? If not, what is? Mention it in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. And as always, thank you guys for watching.